it's just empty talk, and here's a guy wanting to ride the backs of veteran issues to win an election. And so let's talk about some of the specific issues. And you mentioned putting your offices in the VA hospitals and everything. What's your approach to the VA?
Well, I mean, it needs to be a full evaluation of the VA services. I said that I want to take precedence, my office, to make sure that all veterans' cases take precedence. They can call me off the Senate floor, and my guys have told me, I don't have much of a temper, Johnny, but every once in a while somebody just really gets on my nerves. They told me, save all your Snickers moments for when they call you and there's a problem in the VA. I'll do that.
Right.
But there are many things we have to do. We have to review PTS and TBI protocols as they relate to suicide. Versus successful treatments of veterans from all wars. We need to really look into hyperbaric oxygen therapy. The Israelis, when one of their men or women in uniform are injured or harmed, and it's traumatic brain related, they go into detail right away and work with them to make sure that they're healed. We wait until we get rid of people, and then we don't have the services, until everybody retires.
Right.
But we need to look at alternative therapy aside from just drugging people and over-medicating people and not looking at the real problems. Many other things. We need to reopen the same investigations that John McCain and John Kerry closed back in 1992 of the prisoner of war and missing in action investigations that we closed down. We don't leave anybody behind here in this country, I thought. I don't know what happened to that, but somebody who was serving in the 60s and 70s, you don't close out in 1992. You wait until that man or woman could be possibly 150 years old, and then you consider closing it down, but still leaving it open in case we can recover the remains. It doesn't make sense to me. Who is going to want to be our future men and women of our military if we're not taking care of our current veterans and our current men and women in uniform?
Absolutely. And you hit on something here that I want to go back to. The issues with the VA are so broad. We're talking healthcare wise with the treatment plans, the protocols, the overprescribing of medications, all of that. But then you have the flip side of it, and the other half of the VA, which is our benefits, and massive backlogs in every sector, both new claims, appeals, the whole deal. Do you have a plan in place to look at these things and actually, approach it effectively when it's already tied up in the government and they've been talking about it for years?
Strip it back and fix it. It's simple. You just have to get in. You have to be a loud voice. You have to be an advocate. Now, you mentioned something about empty promises or people just saying it because it's an election year. Mm-hmm. Watch me. That's all I can say. And most people don't know me, but if you get to meet me and you get to look me in the eyes, you'll know what you mean to me.
Yeah, and that's an honorable thing, and I think a lot of people should approach any candidate like that. Let's see what they do. Let's find out who they are. But this VA issue is so massive for this community. I have this mantra on the show here that the VA is killing us, and really that's a broad, pretty bold statement, but I stand by it, and it's no more to the front and of everything as it is in Arizona with the Phoenix VA being one of these flagship hospitals for problems. And your opponent John McCain has come out last week and put out this new plan, this bill to radically change the Veterans Choice Program. He basically wants to give everybody the Veterans Choice Program. And there's been some mixed responses to that and everything. Where do you stand on that? And again, what is definitively what can we do to actually fix this second largest bureaucracy in government?
Well, the senator actually took a step in the right direction, at least trying to do something better. But I think it's very simple. The way to fix the program, the way to fix the choice card, which doesn't necessarily work outright, it's very simple. My first day of Congress, and people say maybe I'm being a little outlandish, but not at all. I'm going to through the House, somebody's going to have to submit the bill before it gets to the Senate. But I'm going to write it. I'm going to hand it off to somebody, and it doesn't have to be many pages long. It's pretty simple. It could be as simple as every member of the legislative, executive, and judicial branch must have the same health care as our veterans.
Nice. Kind of a money where your mouth is sort of deal.
Yeah, let them sit and let them see how they like it, and then maybe they'll fix it. And then, hey, if they don't like it and they want to keep their own health care plan, well, here's the only other alternative I'll consider at the moment, is that every single veteran gets a real choice card, not the one that's currently handling right now, where they can go to either the VA or, as they did so for us, they can go to any doctor, any hospital, and any healthcare provider in the world. Service is paid right away in full. I don't like that you hear stories of people not being sure if they go to an outside source if that care is going to be taken care of, and they treat them, and then the bill ends up getting passed on. I don't like hearing stories of how somebody has to be 50% disabled in order not to have their medical coverage not deducted from their retirement. Mm-hmm. What's the difference between 40% disabled and 50% disabled? All the money that comes out of their retirement. It's like, hold on a minute. These little things don't make sense. It's called saying, hey, thanks for your service, but I don't appreciate you all that much.
You're absolutely right. And you mentioned what's the difference between the ratings, and really it's an arbitrary decision in so many cases because because of the backlogs and all the claims issues. It's ridiculous. Now, with the VA, one of the big problems there is this culture. It's toxic. It's absolutely horrific, and they've had no success in holding these people accountable. And how do we deal with the unions? One, to hold these people accountable, and would you be willing to put out a bill requiring vets getting a better job preference with the VA? Especially folks
absolutely.
Are you aware of what the only job is that the VA holds specifically for veterans? There's only one.
Refresh me.
The only job that the VA holds, specifically for veterans is janitor. Every other position at the VA has to go out and be advertised through through the government union system first. And only then, if nobody takes it, can a veteran apply for that who's not already in the union. What do you think of that?
Can I just use the word asinine? I think it's okay to say on air. I don't get it. I would also advocate for every doctor, every staff member in the VA system to be held up for evaluation. I've heard stories of people about to retire not wanting to help any veterans and cursing them out and saying, you're not my effing problem anymore. Mm-hmm. Why can't they have reviews that are contingent? Reviews where they must score I'm just putting this number out there, 75% or better on their evaluations from the veterans. Otherwise, they lose their pension and they're fired or put up for review and then fired. You know what I'm saying? If it happens more than once, something like that. Mm-hmm. Hey, listen, in a free market, if you don't like the service you're receiving somewhere from a doctor or somewhere else, you leave. Right. You can go. And I actually think a real true choice card, like I had mentioned, where you can go anywhere, will make the VA hospitals more accountable. And the bottom line is, if they're budgeted, if they're not providing a service that our veterans like, and they're going down in size, then they go down in size. It's simple.
Mm-hmm. And I love exactly what you're saying here. I think you're spot on. But my question is, do you have the backbone to stand up to these federal government unions? Because, this president flat out refuses to. He threatens to veto any bill that takes away from what he calls the government worker protections, and everything just kind of gets lost in the shuffle because of that veto threat. Are you willing and able to stand up to that kind of outside pressure?
Absolutely. I'm only standing for the people here in Arizona and then the rest of the United States of America. But when I go to Washington, D.C., Mitch McConnell's not going to be my boss. The president is not technically, maybe he is technically the leader in the United States, the president of the people, but the people that I have to represent, the voice that I have to advocate for, that I have to be the microphone for, are the 6.7 million people here in Arizona. And 10% of the population happens to be our veterans, and they need a much more powerful, loud voice. It's just one group. It's just one portion of what ails this country right now. I see is I know I've mentioned, Jefferson, but I don't think Madison, Hamilton, or Franklin would be very pleased to see what has happened in Washington, D.C. It's more of a tyrannical form of government in my eyes than I think that they could have even imagined in this republic that we could have had.
Oh, absolutely. I 100% agree there. And, let's talk about, some of these other issues because, I could talk all day on veterans issues and everything, but, as a congressman, you have to, focus on so many different things. And we live in a very, very scary world. What do you see as, the top policy issues out there that need to be addressed right away?
Taxation is tremendous. We have to also look at our foreign affairs and our national defense right away, too. We have so many issues with immigration. All these things are tied together in so many different ways. Our taxation system, for one. We have a form of taxation which taxes the people based upon the fruits of their labor, not their free will. And that absolutely wasn't what our founders intended. What it has basically done by having a 16th Amendment and going to an income tax is that it's made the coffers of Washington, D.C. that much bigger, that much more powerful. In fact, and I mentioned it when I'm on the campaign trail, most people don't realize this, but since about 1950, 1960, the percentage of the purse strings that Congress controls of the states has grown by over tenfold. So basically, we're at the will of the federal government back in the states to tell us what we can do. This is thoroughly weakening all the republics and, our 10th Amendment rights, it seems, in our states. So the federal government has basically gotten bigger and bigger and bigger and made the voice of the people quieter and given us less power to, I guess, grow and expand in our own states as far as a free market comes to play. You talk about, other fears. Our national defense. I'm dumbfounded that back in 2008, Barack Obama mothballed our battleships. Our battleships are very symbolic of a show of power, a show of force. Plus the fact that you can park a battleship right off the coast of any country and let them try to bombard it, and they can't get through 3 feet of thick steel like that. They will not sink a battleship. And that's imposing, and that also creates a good missile defense system of sorts, which we have absolutely nothing on the eastern seaboard. Our western seaboard is very weak, so we're very, very vulnerable to ballistic missile attacks from countries like, North Korea, which are funded by pretty much Iran.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's one of these things where our current administration and even the opposition parties they don't talk about it a whole lot, and I don't really understand why they haven't done that a lot. But looking at national defense and comparing what you look at in as opposed to your candidate, or I'm sorry, your opponent, is a stark difference, or do you kind of have a copycat type platform?
No, absolutely not. Nobody seems to mention our missile defense system. Nobody seems to mention Israel on my platform either, in my campaign either. John McCain, as we well know, was the one who helped to prop up the Muslim Brotherhood in Morsi years ago.
Yeah,
and he's created a bigger problem for Israel than anybody could imagine. They have 200, 300 million people that want to destroy them surrounding their small country. And John McCain, when you would think we might have an ally in al-Sisi, the president of Egypt, who came in and said, hey, Egypt, we must look Islamic State terrorism in the face, and everybody around the world was saying, wow, they're going to really stand up to this. This is great. McCain is part of the problem when he helps to defund them with the Senate Armed Services Committee with military aid to help them, Right. So all it does is create a fodder for, the ISIS terrorists to, just expand.
Yeah, and John McCain was also heavily criticized for being photographed with the quote unquote moderate rebels, and of course we've seen all the issues play out with those, with the training failures and the rebel groups that are backed by the CIA and the ones that are backed by the Department of Defense are actually fighting each other in Syria. That's a real quagmire. and it does affect relations with Russia, Iran, as well as basically the entire Middle East. What do you see as